Thank you. My name is Victor, and I'm a lecturer in cybersecurity from Teesside University, from the London campus. And really nice to be here in Bristol. This is my first time in Bristol, and I'm loving it. So I'll be talking about a topic called decrypting ransomware, understanding, preventing, and responding to cyber extortion. This topic is something that is really like coming up these days based on a couple of attacks that have been on. So we'll be looking at the basics and how this can be prevented and what you can do around trainings and backups and also protecting your network, making your network stronger. So first of all, what's a ransomware? A ransomware is a form of malware where the attacker would usually infect your device, infect your system. After infecting your system, most times they will decrypt your system, they will encrypt the file and ask for some amount of money. Most times, this payment's in Bitcoin most of the time. And just in 2024 alone, which is this year, we've had a couple of like major ransomware attacks. From that of the NHS, where we had the ransomware attack that attacked the Synovis. Synovis is a partnership, it's a pathology partnership between the NHS, some London hospitals in the NHS, and Sinolab, where they take blood samples and stuff like that. So they had a ransomware attack. We've had some ransomware issues in France and in Chicago, in the largest children's hospital in Illinois. They also suffered a ransomware attack where children's healthcare data were taken advantage of, and the ransomware actors were asking for some money for them to get their data back. So ransomware is a living and breathing issue. It's not just like an abstract kind of concept. It's something that's happens sometimes. Okay. So in the previous slide, this is just a more detailed overview of what I said in the previous slide. Most times it takes 3 steps, but it just depends on different scenarios. It could be different. It could happen in different ways in different scenarios, but most times it takes this form where you probably get the malicious email, get infected, and of course, your data is encrypted. You no longer have access to your data. Talking about the CIA triad, where you have to talk about your confidentiality, your integrity, and your availability. Your data is no longer available for you to have access to them. So it's encrypted. It's useless to you. You don't have the keys. And the attacker is going to tell you, oh, I need some money for me to give you this decryption key. And we have different types of ransomwares. Crypto ransomwares. We have crypto ransomwares. Normally that will be the one where they encrypt your files and you need to pay for a decryption key. We have the locker ransomware, where your files are locked and your files are shut down. And there's also the ransomware as a service. We'll be looking at that when we talk about things around how ransomwares in the future, how ransomwares are going to evolve in the future. The last part of this talk talks about, we look around things where, how would ransomware evolve in the future? What are the things we expect to see as regards ransomware in the future? So we'll be looking at that in the next couple of slides. So, in understanding ransomware, it's very important to understand how can you be vulnerable to a ransomware attack. What are some common ransomware attack vectors? By attack vectors, we mean channels through which you can actually get attacked. What are the channels through which you can actually be vulnerable? One of the most common ways you can actually be vulnerable to a ransomware attack would be phishing email, which would be when a malicious actor claims to be somebody they are not. The most popular one sometimes is where you have somebody claiming to be a CEO or someone you know. Maybe they've done some information gathering about you and they construct this email in such a way that it's going to make so much sense to you. And the email is going to be very convincing, and maybe you or your staff clicks a link and of course the malicious actor has control of your system, and voila, they start asking you for some amount of money. We also have driving downloads. Driving downloads has to do with things around websites. For instance, some websites are actually malicious. I mean, in 2013, I think there were a couple of alleged reports around some developers who visited there's like a developer forum with malicious sites, and their systems were infected. So there are certain websites you can actually visit that would make you vulnerable to attack. So if you have like an organization, you have a company, you're like a cybersecurity person, you want to make sure that the site you visit with your system is actually safe, so that you don't become, because some sites when you visit them, probably like, they get access to your systems from there. Then software vulnerabilities. Some companies outsource. Not every company is able to like build the software they use in-house. Most people have to like outsource and use vendor specific softwares. So if, for instance, you are using a particular software and this software has some vulnerabilities in them, it makes you vulnerable to an attack. And sometimes there's really nothing you can actually do about this, because you are not like the builder of the software. You're not the one who developed the software. You're not like in charge of checking for patches for this software. It's your vendor. So definitely, if your vendor is not like doing the right things around like checking for patches to see where the software he or she has deployed for you is vulnerable or weak, then you can actually get hacked from there if a malicious actor gets to see this vulnerability. So for this particular attack vector, there's little or nothing you can actually do to protect yourself. That is like probably beyond your control. Then IoT devices. Everywhere today we have IoT devices, from our smart cameras to the smart doors. I mean, when we were coming in today, some of us use the automatic doors, right? So you come in and everything is smart. Even your fridges today are smart, and you have smart thermostats that tell us like the temperature, everything. You have smart stuff around it basically today. And it can actually be a form of vulnerability too, if it is not adequately protected, passworded, encrypted, okay, because your IoT devices are connected to your network, right? So that can actually be a means through which you'll be hacked. Another attack vector I didn't mention here would be a social engineering. In the social engineering perspective, attack vectors, we have things around dumpster diving, for instance. When you are dealing with sensitive documents in your organization and you don't properly shred them and you dispose them carelessly, if a hacker goes to the bin and gets access to those documents, you can actually make yourself liable to an attack. Also, today with COVID and everything, lots of remote work. Yeah, today people are working in cafes, in airports, working remotely. There's also the concept of shoulder surfing, right? You are trying to work, meet up to the deadline. You're taking a train from point A to point B, and you're just trying to do stuff, and you're not bothering to like check who's looking on my right or who's looking on my left, and you're putting in like a secure password, and you don't know who's actually looking and saying, okay, your password is 12357, your dog name and stuff like that, So that actually makes you vulnerable to this kind of attack. So sometimes what makes you vulnerable to an attack might not just be the technical stuff. You might have all the technical stuffs, in there, but if you're careless as a human being, if you're not careful, you might actually fall victim. So ransomware, we also look at the impacts of a ransomware attack. Ransomware is kind of different from some other attacks because when a ransomware attacker attacks you, he's attacking you because he needs money from you. There are some people who hack because of a social cause. They want to send a message, right? They are hacking because they just want to hack. Some people do it for fun, right? They just want to play around. Some people are careless, they overpush their boundaries. They just want to hack and stuff. They don't have any thing. They don't really want to get anything from you. Some people just want to let you know that your system is vulnerable. I want you to know that your system is vulnerable. That's why I'm hacking you and stuff. But for ransomware attackers, they want money from you. Most of the time, they would ask for like payments in crypto, Bitcoin. And you know that Bitcoin payment is not like, when you convert it to like the normal currencies, dollars or pounds, it's not like it's not like a small figure, So if you fall victim to a ransomware attack, it's going to have a direct effect, a direct impact on your revenue. So it's going to have a direct cost because you'll be spending, and ransomware attacks would normally target companies they know that can pay them huge amounts of money. Okay? So they'll be charging you based on how much you know that, your annual turnover is probably 10 billion pounds. Yeah, so you're probably going to give us maybe 2 billion pounds to make us happy before we give you your files back and stuff like that. Right? So if you fall victim to a ransomware attack, you can actually, to have direct cost, downtime, then downtime is also one of it. I spoke about some ransomware attacks that happened in 2024 about the hospital in Chicago, where the children's hospital. Now, imagine where these kids want to like do maybe some operations, or they want to get normal healthcare, and the system is down. It's going to have an effect on patients' experience. Right? Patient experience in healthcare. And for the Synovis attack that happened with the NHS, you see, it's going to impact people who want to use the lab, so it's going to have the downtime is going to have a direct impact on your business process. If you are actually in a manufacturing organization, in a big manufacturing organization where you probably have a target of producing about 200,000 units of whatever you're producing every day. If you have a downtime, for instance, for 2 days, that means you are short by about 400,000 units, right? So it's going to have the downtime is going to affect your business process. Then brand reputation. Obviously, if you fall victim to a ransomware attack, it's going to affect your brand. It's going to affect your brand name. People will be like, that company. So the first thing people are going to be able to associate with you whenever they hear the name of your company would be, that company that fell victim to a ransomware attack so time ago. So it's going to take, so imagine the brand name you actually spent years trying to build your brand name for a very long time. And because of a little mistake, you fall victim to this and you have to start all over again, working on your PR to improve your image again. So you see, it's going to have it has a lot of impact on you. Then potential lawsuits and fines. Yes, you can actually be fined. You can actually get sued if, for instance, you are supposed to provide a service to maybe some of your clients and they feel that, okay, maybe you couldn't meet up with when you guys agreed, and you're trying to explain to them that, because I had some issues with my system. Some people some clients might not care. They'll be like, you've breached our contract and stuff like that. And in terms of fines, we'll be looking at legal and ethical issues later in this slide. You could be fined by the ICO, for instance, if you don't keep up to the reporting requirements you have. So, because of time, I'll just be looking at some quick ways we can actually prevent ransomware attacks. So one of the ways would be for you to make sure you update your software regularly. If you don't develop your software in-house, you have to always check with your vendors to check that there are patches available. Your vendors most times are usually doing security patches to ensure that the vulnerabilities are taken care of. So if you do not patch up your software, then you are leaving yourself vulnerable to an attack. Encryption and passwords, very important. The sensitive files you have needs to be encrypted, and passwords too. You should also, this goes back, the preventing ransomware, this particular section about encryption and passwords also goes back to security awareness training, in the sense that some of your staffs or your company, you should encourage your staff to change their password regularly. You shouldn't be using one password for 6 months or a very long time. Your password should be a specific character length, and use some keywords characters, symbols and all that, So there should be good policies as regards passwords for your sensitive details and employee logins. Back up your data, very important. Take out time to back up your data so that if, for instance, if anything happens, if you were to fall victim to a cyber attack or a cyber incident, you would be able to get back quickly, right? So you want to make sure that you don't only back up your data, you also test your backup, your restore process to ensure that if I were to fall victim to a particular cyber attack now, if I am trying to restore my data, am I going to get an exact mirror of what I currently have? Okay, so while backing up your data, you also want to make sure that your backup, your restore process is also functional. This ties in a whole lot with your business continuity process, right? So that there's business continuity if there's any issue with your system. Then you have to be cautious with emails and attachments. Some companies, some organizations, what they do is that after they do a security awareness training around phishing, they send they send like sample random phishing emails to their employees to check whether they would actually fall. Then employees that actually fall for the trick would have to do the training again. So it's not just enough for you to train your employees around phishing and actually think that, everybody got it 100%. So you need to test them regularly to ensure that your employees are actually cautious with emails and attachments. So how would you prepare for a ransomware incident? Sorry, this went up. So how would you prepare for a ransomware incident? Obviously, in your security policy, you would want to have a response plan and a team. You want to have a response plan as regards how would you respond to a cybersecurity incident when it actually happens. In this case, a ransomware incident. And in your response team, you want to have a defined list of responsibilities, roles and responsibilities as regards who is responsible for what, accountability when something happens, okay? And who is going to be involved, depending, you might have to involve certain big decisions have to be taken. Sometimes if you have a cyber attack, you want to manage the information, you want to know what do you want to say, how do you say it, you want to involve the public relations team, you want to get your legal counsel involved to know how you're going to respond, so that you don't fall into lawsuits and things like that. So your incident response plan and things around your incident response plan and the team you put together are like a very holistic process. It's not just like a one size fits all. It just depends on how big your organization is. Then you also need to look around how you can limit privileges in your team. So access control, this ties in well with access control. You should periodically audit and limit access to especially sensitive resources. Check if this person, whether people are supposed to have access. Do they need to actually have access? Is it necessary for them to actually have access? If it's not necessary, then they shouldn't have access. If somebody, for instance, moves from the engineering team to the accounting team, do they really need to have certain access to some engineering resources? So you need to periodically check people's access to see how limited they are, and whether they actually should have access. Then I've spoken about testing your backup processes to see whether it actually works, just in case you fall victim. Then secure networks. You want to also have secure networks, everything around your firewalls, your intrusion detection system, have a team in place, segmenting your network, have a VLAN using a VPN, everything you can actually do on the technical part to actually make sure threat intelligence, everything you can actually do to see that, to make sure that you don't actually fall for a ransomware attack. Then when you actually fall to a ransomware attack, how do you respond? The first step would be for you not to panic. and for you to actually isolate. You try to like isolate the infected system so that in some instances where just a section of your network has been infected, you probably want to like isolate the infected system so that it doesn't spread. Forensic analysis for the second one, where you have to collect evidence. You probably do a reverse engineering to see what actually happened, gather information about the attacks, logs, timestamps, and infection files. Most times when a ransomware attack happens, sometimes because it's like a hostage situation where this ransom actor is trying to get something from you, they would be willing to communicate with you. So by communicating with them, you can actually get some information as regards how they actually got into your system, right? So even if you are not willing to actually, even though you know that you're not going to pay, by actually speaking with them, trying to talk to them, you can actually get some information as regards, how to conduct a forensic analysis to know how they actually got access to your system. So they can actually tell you some things. Oh, maybe we have access to this. You can ask for proof. Okay, show us proof that you have this and stuff like that. So that might actually help you to an extent to know how far and what could possibly have been, the vulnerability that made you fall victim. And another thing would be for you to contact law enforcement to report the attack to the authorities. When you have a breach, you contact law enforcement. And number 4, do not pay the ransom, because paying the ransom does not actually guarantee that you are going to get your files back. And of course, it's giving more money. You're actually funding criminal activities, because paying the ransom actually means that they have more money and more resources at their disposal to get more sophisticated software. Then the legal and ethical issues. There are legal and ethical issues around data breaches, obviously. Reporting requirements for GDPR, for instance, usually, I think, for GDPR, when there's a data breach that has impacted the personal data of your customers, you as a data controller, you have you have an obligation to report to the ICO, and of course, perhaps inform you have to report this to the ICO and let them know that the Information Commission Officer, to let them know that you have actually been impacted by data breach. And data breach notifications, if your customers, if you handle personal data, obviously you have to let your customers know that you've suffered a data breach, and of course their personal data has been compromised, so that they can actually take maybe safety procedures, since their personal data has been breached. So another ethical issue would be, should you pay or should you not pay? So like I said in the previous slide, paying the ransom is you are not still sure whether it's going to restore access to your files, and it also funds criminal activity. Then lastly, so what would be the future of ransomware attacks? The future would be, some part of the future would be things around ransomware as a service, which is also like a thing now, where certain actors provide like sophisticated systems for people who are not that technically adept to actually use. So people who conduct ransomware these days is not really hard. You probably do not need to have so much technical skill to actually conduct a ransomware attack. With a ransomware as a service, these actors will provide you like a software, and you can actually, people can actually conduct this on their own. So this is ransomware as a service, probably how it works. Then there's increased sophistication, where your files can be encrypted with a double encryption, with a combination of like the AES and the RSA encryption, or they can also just encrypt like a double encryption. Then we also have something called a fileless ransomware attack. It's a type of ransomware that occurs in memory rather than where you can actually visibly see it on your hard drive. So it's actually hard to detect or eradicate since it operates at the memory level. Then there's also the AI-powered attacks. These days, ransomware actors could actually do like a data analysis to know which clients are going to pay more. they can do like an analysis to see how do I identify high value targets? How do I get high value targets and things like that? Who is likely to pay me a ransom based on this data analysis? Based on this data analysis, if I do like they will do like maybe probably use a machine learning algorithm and things like that and see, okay, from this analysis, this is who we are going to target based on this analysis. And with things around AI deepfakes and, so many AI technologies, I think my time is
5 minutes.
5 minutes, right? With things around AI-powered attacks today, we have automated phishing, things around automated phishing and deepfakes, that can actually make things seem like they are what they are when they are not, So these are some ways that ransomware attacks are expected to evolve in the coming future. And I really hope that if you're just like trying to like get to know more about ransomware attacks, like this talk probably gives you like a bit more overview of what a ransomware attack involves. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thanks for your talk. I was wondering, as someone who's currently studying the sixth form, I'm not in university yet, what would be the best place to, learn how to reverse engineer malware and, understand how malware works?
Come again?
Where do I learn? What do I learn about malware analysis, and how do I learn how to reverse engineer it?
How to learn how to reverse engineer malware? There are lots of resources online. There are lots of resources around malware attacks. There are lots of ethical hacking courses available online. There are lots on YouTube. There's also TCM security. There are so many resources online if you want to learn things around malware, reverse engineering, ethical hacking. There are so many resources online for that. Okay? Yeah.
On your previous slide, you had something called fileless ransomware.
Yeah.
It runs in the memory and has no tracing hardware.
Yeah.
How does that work? I just don't think I've come across that before. Can you just elaborate on that?
Yeah. So this is because for fileless ransomware, for instance, now if it's running on memory, if you fall victim to a particular ransomware attack, for instance, now you probably want to do go to your file explorer and you just check, okay, this is on my file, it's on my hard drive, I can actually find it somewhere. But if this is running like on the memory level, on like the operating system level, because in operating system, you have like different levels in the system, like the kernel and all that, So if this is running like on the memory level, you will probably detect it, but you might not be able to detect it on time for you to actually give like an adequate like response or actually stop the system. That's why sometimes it actually helps to like unplug everything before it actually spreads. But those decisions will be based on what the incident response team, who is responsible in the incident response team, would know. But in an incident response team, there will be specialists, who would also be familiar with things around fileless ransomwares. Yeah. Who do I go to first? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for your speech. First of all, do we have any statistics that how percentage of businesses, what percentage actually pay the ransom,
okay,
and what percentage of businesses may try to analyze?
Okay. So I don't have the exact figures at the moment, but I think earlier this week, I think the National Crime Agency spoke about the fact that ransomware attacks are like the most serious cyber attacks that are facing the UK and the critical infrastructures in the UK. So, ransomware attack is like a major threat, in the UK. Like the exact numbers that they affect, I don't have the specifics, but there were actually research on that particular article. There were numbers put out there by, I think, a research firm called Sophos or something, but I don't have the exact numbers. But yeah, ransomware attack, it's like the major attack, like that the government has actually identified that faces like the critical network infrastructure, like things around your water, your gas, and things like that. So it's like a major problem.
Also, how effective are platforms like VirusTotal or Anyone? Because ransomware has many variants,
okay,
many divers.
Yeah.
Do we have protection for all these variants or?
Yeah. I think there are lots of organizations that's why things around pen testing. This is where pen testing comes in helpful. I mean, I was speaking to, was it Molly Sharp I was speaking to today? Her company Validator does things around. They do things around helping you check. They kind of specialize around helping you check how vulnerable you might be to a ransomware attack. So yeah, there are tools to help you check how vulnerable you might be if you have a ransomware attack. Yeah.
I'm going to cut you off there. Very sorry. If anyone has any more questions, please feel free to swamp this poor man at the end.
All right.
But yes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.